Hello, my name is Winsley, and welcome to my beginner's guide to the line of sight for turrets in Age of Wonders Planetfall. Turrets are pretty challenging to fight. They do a lot of damage from really far away, so engaging them is pretty difficult for both new players and veteran players. So I decided to put together a little visual aid to help explain how you can go about attacking them. And if you play your cards right, it's almost like they're not there. So yeah, this is my little visual aid. It's got a little breakdown of what you're going to see when you go into combat. Right here we have a risky battle, which if we let the auto combat do, it will lose a couple units, which you really don't need to do, because what it's doing is it's just running its guys forward and tanking the shots, which is fine if you're okay with losing units, but completely unnecessary. Now, let's take a look at the actual battle and talk about how this map relates to my little visual aid. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to line up our in-game map with the visual aid. We now have the 3 retreating hexes in the middle of the visual aid. In the middle of our in-game map, we have the ones that are off to the right, and we have the ones that are off to the left. Give me just 1 second to hop on over to Paint to highlight those with my cursor. So yeah, we've got the 6 retreating hexes at the bottom down here. We have the 6 retreating ones to the right here, and the 6 retreating hexes over here. Now we can talk about some more of these hexes. The attacking units spawn in these ones. We got 6 over here. We've got 6 in the middle and 6 over here to the left. We've only filled up a couple in the middle in our in-game example because we don't have a full stack of 6. If we brought in a 4th stack of 6, they would either spawn behind these 6 units or behind these 6 units or behind these 6 units, depending on where that stack was in relation to the other stacks. Defenders spawn back here, and they moved forward in game, so they're no longer on those tiles, but they always start on those ones or a little bit further back if they have more stacks than 3. If they're able to get 4 or 5 stacks into the fight, I believe they just spawn a tile back or so. Now that we've gotten our bearing and we know where everything is, we can talk about some of the more fun hexes. We got these 4 turret hexes which have 9 range. That's a lot of range. They can shoot anything in the purple hexes, but these green tiles are safe. We can move around some guys in a second to show that off. The black hexes are symbolizing these big obstacles which block line of sight, and the light blue ones are representing half cover, which the turrets can shoot past. The red in the back is these little funny thingies that count as cover on all sides, and because they're slightly different than the other half covers, you can sit in them and they block a little bit of line of sight. I decided to give them a slightly different color. Now I show off exactly what that green is saying. I think if I move my unit in here, you may be thinking that that's probably not a safe spot. Actually, it is. The Baron cannot get shot in this green hex. That is this green hex right here. If I move forward and left a little bit, then he will be in range of this thing. But to the right, he's fine. And actually here is not safe. That's not a great spot for him to end his turn on. But on the other side, there's another place which you can. And since this guy has the bio launcher, that's actually a decent spot to put him. I mean, in this example, there's a lot of units that can get to him, so he's not exactly safe there. But the nice thing is I can actually target the ground here and shoot this turret. and he cannot actually shoot back onto that tile. Yeah, my way B. So yeah, this guy is safe here, and that's really, really useful, being able to move your units around like that so that they're safe and able to do damage is a massive advantage, because the AI just doesn't know how to do that. It doesn't know how to plan accordingly. It's going to say, well, this guy is inside range of the turret, so he's maybe something that we don't need to send other units after. You may be noticing, just looking at our visual aid, that things are not symmetrical. We have different shapes on the right side than we do on the left side. If you look on the left side, it's a little bit more clustered. Your safe zones are a little bit clustered together, so you can get like swarm shielding back there and maybe do some artillery. It's a nice fun strategy. If you want to be able to have more line of sight, I think you might want to move your units off to the right and just keep them at a safe distance away from the turrets, so that when the other units approach, they can do some damage. All you really need to do is sally the defenders out of their fortifications, and then things are all good. All of these black obstacles can be blown up, so keep that in mind. If you're facing off against a Devar commander, they may accidentally blow up the walls that you're relying on to defend you. Now, I think there is only one more thing in here that we really got to talk about, and that's the partially filled locations, or rather the partially filled squares. This hex over here has a tiny bit of green, because if you are in that hex, this turret cannot shoot you while that turret is alive. The turret counts as cover, so after this one's blown up, this turret can shoot into there and do some damage. And the same is true of this cover over here in this hex. The half green over there is symbolizing that if I get this guy all the way forward, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that on the next turn, but if I get him all the way forward there, he's safe from the other turret. So when you get to the end of a combat, that can be pretty useful, just to make it so that you don't have to take too many shots off of an enemy turret. I know sometimes you're just like trying to chase down one unit in the back, and you're like, how do I move my guys forward without them taking too much damage? Well, if you know where your units are safe, you may be able to get away with some cool stuff. This guy, unlike the bio launcher, this worm, he doesn't need to get too close in order to launch his thing. It does require a full action, so I should have probably moved him forward before trying to do that, but I think that spot right there is safe, and on the next turn I could use his thing to attack here. Even though he can't attack here, I can attack right there because artillery is special. Yeah, let's actually try and get this guy further forward on the next turn. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get close enough to do his thing, so we'll send in some other guys to kind of draw the fire. And you can heal up. Do we have anything that's just gonna like make this easier? Yeah, sure. Now, I did want to also highlight that I was very surprised that this tile right here is actually safe. I couldn't believe that doesn't have line of sight, and that I didn't see that earlier, because that is a great location for flanking units off to the right or units off to the left. When people come forward, you can kind of take a unit and park him here. I was also pretty shocked to see that this is safe. That's safe. That is not. But somehow this one is. I haven't actually taken advantage of that. Given how close it is to the edge of the map, it kind of locks this unit too much in place for my liking. But I think if you wanted to put a unit with like a ranged attack, like a sniper or like a launcher, that could be really, really cool. Now let's see. Is there anybody else I want to move forward here? You could try and do a concussion shot, right? Just to, keep our guys safe. And let's see if we can get a unit all the way forward enough to kind of show off how there's no line of sight for some reason right here. Did you entangle him? You have been entangled. I may be able to get rid of that, because I was going to try and show off something cool. There's too many units here. Maybe this wasn't the best example for showing things off, because now we gotta wait for all the dudes. But it's a close battle. I wanted to show off basically. Oh, you can't get there. Not without moving, and he can't move all the way there, but you can. Alright, good. So you're gonna go here, and you're just gonna show off that for some reason there's no line of sight here. Like, this guy, he can get shot from there by both turrets, but this is just blocking it perfectly, and there is a way to blow it up. If I use this thingy on it, I think we could show that that disappears, which is, I think, kind of interesting, because I wasn't really sure how it figured that all out, how it came to that decision exactly. We don't have anything that removes our stuff, do we? No. Yeah, well, we can show off that he can't launch here when this guy can't shoot him, so that is kind of cool for your artillery units. Now, let's talk a little bit about the different types of turrets and how that affects things. This guy is a laser turret, which means it can destroy a little bit of the enemy's shields, so kind of annoying. It's repeating, which means it does a lot of damage. There is a single attack one. I believe there's only one. We'll find out in a second, because we're going to go through them all. But yeah, it's because it can bypass shields, it does a lot of damage to a lot of different types of units. Some units only have armor, so this is less useful against that. I believe it starts with 2 shields, but it's gotten some extra shields from, yeah, the Aegis protection. That's where it got those extra shields. Most of them have 40 HP and 2 defenses, either 2 shields, 2 armor, and I think 1 or 2 of them may have 1 armor and 1 shield. Yeah, axe on his turn, blah blah blah, all of the basics. Now, the next turret I want to look at is the Vanguard one, which is a repeater. It's got 10 attack, range 9, it does a little bit of staggering, it's repeating, it's got 2 armor, so very, very similar to the last one, but yeah, I think it does a little bit less damage. This is 10, this one does, it says 13, but I can't tell if it's being boosted by anything. I don't think it is. I think I put in my notes that, yeah, it has 13 thermal damage, so it does have a pretty high DPS when you compare it to the Vanguard one. The Syndicate one is special. I really do like this one. Actually, wait, there's a better way of doing this. I had this in my notes. Now we can find them quicker. Now, we're going to talk about Syndicate next. This one's really good because it bypasses all defenses. It doesn't have to remove defense. Or rather, not all defenses. It bypasses armor. If you're attacking something with shields, it still has to deal with the shields, but I love the fact that it can bypass as a lower base damage of 9 psionic damage, but that should actually add up to quite a lot of damage. Given the fact that it's going to bypass a lot of targets' defenses. It does apply Broken Mind, so that is different. It is special and quite a bit more powerful with the recent patch. Broken Mind now, I think the effect on morale is more significant. It's easier to get bonuses in combat, or rather to make it harder for them to do combat, which is kind of like bonuses for you. So now let's go to our Kirko Hive Guard. I can't do that. This guy, he has, yeah, 2 defense, 40 HP, pretty normal, 10 bio damage, and it can melt armor, which I think is less good than the Syndicate one because it's only 1 more point of damage, and instead of just bypassing all armor, it actually has to remove it first, which I guess is good if you got other units in your army that aren't going to be able to just bypass armor. You need to go through armor. But I don't know. It's not my favorite one out of all of them. All these have been repeating, haven't they? Now I think we're ready to look at the Devar one, which is not repeating. No, I did go back this time. The Bombard is a single attack stagger. It demolishes, so if you're not careful, it will blow up the cover that you're hiding behind. Yeah, this guy, he can't be targeted, but let's say you had a unit that was just like by one of these things and that was supporting somebody else. This guy could maybe blow up your cover, and that would be really, really, really bad. Or rather, not this one, but the Devar one, which is, what was it called again? Bomb something rather? Bombard? I can't find it now. Alright. We had it up a second ago when we did this. Yeah, when it does this attack, there's a good chance that you could blow up your cover. Maybe if you're in half cover, that would cause you issues. And it also makes it so that some of the places that I labeled as green are less safe than you may have been thinking. Yeah, like this guy's safe right now, but if I say parked this guy here, if I wasn't paying attention, this guy can attack here, and because the single attack is an AoE, that would end up hitting all of the units around it, meaning this guy is now in danger. So you have to be really, really mindful of that. I don't think the AI is smart enough to try and target this or this tile to try and damage multiple units like that. I don't know if eventually they will put that in there, but you know, if I was in control of the target, I would do that to do damage to multiple units. You have to be really, really mindful of that type of thing when you're fighting against the Devar. And the same is true when you're facing off against the assembly. Are we ready to move on to assembly? I think that was everything I wanted to talk about here when I'm talking about this guy. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Oh, you can't shoot right next to him. He's got a range of 2 through 9, which is also different than all the others. His DPS isn't very high, but he can cause problems because it blows up cover. Now we can talk about the assembly one, which is cool. I think the arc coil is probably one of my favorite towers. It doesn't have a lot of DPS, only 7, but because it applies static charge, that can be a lot more, and it jumps to nearby enemy units, and I think it can jump up to 2 hexes away. So that's the problem. That's a really, really big problem if you like to cluster your units together. And yeah, it will lead to units that are in like my green hexes in the visual aid to being less safe than you may have been thinking. And because it jumps from nearby targets, they can target like a flying unit, and then that flying unit could cause issues for everybody else. This guy was close to him, and this was an Amazon thing. They could target this unit, and then there'd be a 40% chance that it jumped from this unit to that unit. Quite significant. So yeah, the attacking the assembly turrets and the Devar turrets take a little tiny bit more planning and thought and you know, coordination between all of your different units. The placement is very, very important. There was one more turret that I thought about talking about here. There's a Paragon Warden target turret, but that's not part of assaulting a colony. That's a very different type of turret. It's stronger, but yeah, you won't be fighting it in most games. Now, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we had a way to see the line of sight from any tile to another tile, because I had to move each of these units over the tile to see that. And I think it'd be really, really helpful if when I'm looking here, I could see if that's something that this unit can shoot. Right now, I can only do that if I put him in the tile. So if you're a modder, or if you work at Paradox and you're looking for things to add to the game to make it a lot easier for people to understand what their options are strategically, I think like a line of sight button or mod could be really helpful for that. Now, that's everything I had to say on this topic this week. If there's anything you want to add to it, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll see you around. Have a good one.